England is a joy to visit over and over again for its beautiful countryside and magnificent history. If there's one word to describe the British and their hobbies, they are very passionate, and that's putting it mildly, as some would argue that it borders on eccentricity. Eccentric or not, their deep appreciation for culture and tradition has led to some of the world's best collections of classic automobiles and aircraft. For all gearheads out there, this is one adventure you don't want to miss. Cambridge. These historic buildings house some of the world's brightest minds. And I already feel smarter just by walking around. A place like this can only be the beginning of another great adventure. I started with a very British activity of punting along the River Cam, which cuts across the university town.
Cambridge University is one of the oldest in the world, and its alumni have made groundbreaking discoveries and inventions, including the jet engine.
A punt refers to this flat-bottomed boat with a square front propelled by a long pole. It's not to be confused with a gondola that is structurally different and uses an oar to move through the water.
Drag it through the water like a rudder on a boat.
Okay.
Yeah?
Okay. Do you have a life vest? So he's teaching me how to do this, and it's deeper than I thought. It's a good way of spending the afternoon, just going around the area.
The reason I based myself in Cambridge was for three things: a car, a watch, and an aircraft. The car may not be British, but the Q7 is such a well-mannered car, it can pass off as one.
Well, it's typical British weather here, but it's still fun to drive on the countryside, especially with this Quattro. Wheels are clinging on to the roads.
Quiet and elegant inside, with socially acceptable drinking habits at 20 miles per gallon, its hefty exterior carried enough pomp as we drove through the English countryside. Not far from Cambridge is the sleepy town of Old Warden. It may be small, but it's filled with heritage. But what the town really prides itself in is the preservation of aviation and automobile history. This brings me to the Old Warden Aerodrome, where flying buddies Mark and Pete were waiting for me.
Hi, Joy.
England
Great
again?
to see you. Great to see you.
Hello, Joy. Yeah, welcome.
Happy to be here.
Well, we look forward to showing you around this vintage aircraft collection, which I
Okay.
think is probably one of the best in the world.
I can imagine. I'm here also for a mission.
Good.
To find the aircraft that is a part of my watch.
Well, more on that later. For now, it was appreciating the enormity of the Shuttleworth Collection, which houses an incredible array of vintage automobiles and aircraft. Started by Richard Shuttleworth, it is a tribute to his lifelong passion for racing and flying. Born in 1909 at Old Warden, his family's wealth came from manufacturing agricultural machinery. At a young age, he showed a fascination for all things mechanical. By the age of 23, he gained enough inheritance to pursue his passions. Richard bought and restored old cars, some of which are still running until today. He was also a successful racer, winning the International Donington Grand Prix in 1935. After a serious accident in 1936, he ended his racing career and concentrated on his next love, aviation. His first airplane, a de Havilland Moth, is still here, in good flying condition. Richard searched for historic aircraft and restored them to pristine condition.
This is the Valerio. It's the world's oldest flying aeroplane, so very historic.
3 cylinders.
Just 25 horsepower. I think what makes this special is that all these other aircraft are replicas, whereas this
Is a real one.
And built in 1909, so over 100 years old.
Today, the engineering workshop in Shuttleworth is still abuzz with activity, restoring iconic aircraft. When the war broke out in 1939, Richard joined the Royal Air Force. While on a cross-country training exercise, his aircraft crashed and he was killed. His mother kept the collection alive in his memory, and despite his untimely death, he left an enduring legacy for British motoring and aviation. Britain has always played a major role in aircraft development, producing some of the most effective machines during the First World War. During the Second World War, British airplanes again played major roles in the conclusion of the conflict.
This one is an impressive airplane, huh?
A Westland Lysander, which was used during World War II, predominantly on special operations, but to insert spies and troops into France and Belgium.
That's why it's in black.
Exactly. It flew night operations predominantly.
And Pete, it's a bit unusual because the cowling incorporates the exhaust, huh?
Yes, I've never seen that before.
In the years between the wars, British designers produced a series of sleek and fast racers. This was what I was particularly interested in, as I was here to find an aircraft to which my timepiece belonged.
Well, you know, I came all the way here specifically for this airplane.
It's a beautiful aeroplane.
Indeed, there was 3 of these built, de Havilland 88 Comet Racer.
I know.
It was built in 1934 for the Australia Air Race.
Dubbed as the world's greatest air race, the McRobertson Trophy was to be a test of endurance, technology, and determination. 20 aircraft from 6 countries were to fly from Mildenhall, England to Melbourne, Australia in an 11,300-mile race that normally took 2 months to complete. The pilots hoped to do it over a weekend. At that time, everyone thought that only transport aircraft would be capable of covering the long distance under such a short period of time, a category dominated by American aircraft. Challenged, British aircraft manufacturer Geoffrey de Havilland designed an airplane that can win the race. And so, representing the empire was the pinnacle of aero and Art Deco design at the time, the de Havilland Comet.
Fantastic airplane.
Very advanced for its time, a beautifully crafted aeroplane. You'll notice that the wings are so thin, there's no fuel tanks in the wing, the fuel is all up in the nose on the fuselage, which enabled the aerofoil to be primed for fast flight.
And a retractable gear as well. I think during the time it was one of the first.
Yes.
Yeah, and a variable pitch propeller as well.
Very sleek.
This red one, flown by Charles Scott and Tom Campbell Black, emerged the winner, completing the race and breaking flight records at less than 71 hours. Now, beautifully restored and still flying.
Well, do you know that I have a piece of this aircraft in my wrist?
You have to show us that.
Bermont Watches made a watch specifically to honor this racer. They did a limited edition of this watch, and you know, right there is a part of this structure, is the wood, which is a part of the structure of this aircraft. Yes.
Wow. The back of the watch is more interesting than the front.
I know.
But does it tell the time?
Yes, it can.
It does that as well.
Excellent.
Seeing the collection made me fascinated at this aspect of British culture.
Pete, Mark, you've shown me all these things, motorcycles, airplanes, cars. I'm just curious why the British have a passion for restoring and preserving things.
Well, I think it's, in one word, it's nostalgia. We have a lot of people who remember the cars that they travelled in or worked on, or the aeroplanes, and they want to keep that and hang on to our past. And we've been very lucky in having foresight like the Shuttleworth Collection to actually bring it all together and give a good museum.
It was a very interesting morning spent at the Shuttleworth Collection. And what a great feeling to be wearing a part of aviation history. From the early years of British aviation, its future was only a short drive away from Old Warden. The huge Cardington hangars have been around since the 1930s and have seen the development of British airship technology. But today's real star is the gigantic airship next to these hangars. I was invited by Chris of Hybrid Air Vehicles to behold the world's largest aircraft.
Wow, Chris, this is huge.
Absolutely. So this is the Airlander. So it's the world's longest aircraft. It's 92 metres long. So that's another 15, 16 metres longer than a 747 or A380. So airships have been around for 150 years.
I know, yeah.
But they've always been a bit of a niche product. What we've done is we've mixed an airship with an aeroplane wing.
The hybrid aircraft combines the best of fixed-wing and rotary aircraft with a lighter-than-air technology to create a new breed of hyper-efficient aircraft.
So you were doing this with what mission in mind?
So what this does, it does two things very well. It can stay in the air for a long time carrying a lot of payload. So that means it can do Coast Guard duties, search and rescue, surveillance, even things like filming, but it can just go off. This could stay in the air for up to 21 days non-stop on a single tank of fuel.
How many toilets do you have?
Yeah. We only fitted a toilet in quite recently for the pilots. But the other thing it does is carry cargo very efficiently. This can land and take off on pretty much any surface. So it's got more flexibility than any other aircraft.
With its efficiency and capabilities, the possibilities are endless for this new type of aircraft. Whether it be for research, disaster response, or sightseeing, aviation history is being written right here. Up next, I continue to appreciate British nostalgia as I get to see a magnificent private car collection and fly vintage aircraft with old friends.